You're locked into Inception Radio Network, Superior, Wisconsin.
You're tuned in to Night Vision Radio, exposing the truth one secret at a time. Prepare yourself as we explore the shadow worlds of suppressed history, secret knowledge, forbidden religion, and shine a light on the conspiracies to keep it all from us. Welcome to Night Vision Radio. Hey, I hear the secrets that you keep. Well, tonight we're going to be revealing some secrets, but first let me take care of a couple little housekeeping items. As you know, Night Vision is broadcast live every Thursday at 10:30 p.m. Eastern on InceptionRadioNetwork.com. And if you'd like to listen to this show again or catch up on any past show, the shows are archived on Inception, as well as on iTunes and Stitcher. Soon they're also going to be available on our new website, René-le-Château, which is being built as we speak. Finally, it's going to launch, and I want to really thank my special web designer and fellow Rennie, and he knows who he is, and we're going to out him in the weeks to come. But he's doing a great job, and we really, really appreciate the help. In the meantime, please drop by and like us on Night Vision Radio on Facebook. All that helps us. All those little things just sort of help us keep this show going, and we really appreciate it. And also, I'd love it if you would feel free to recommend topics and guests for future shows, because we definitely want to give our listeners what they want, which, of course, leads us to tonight. And Mary Joyce is an author, a journalist, a teacher, and a veritable Renaissance woman. Tonight, she reveals the secrets of the underground military bases in North Carolina and the hidden history of Jesus and so much more. I think we're going to even maybe get into some Bigfoot, which is one of my favorites as well. So thank you so much for making the time to join us tonight, Mary.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being invited on the program.
Well, you know, so many of us are, especially if we've hung around the UFO subject for as many years as I have, which is, of course, more than I'd like to admit to. We've all kind of been familiar with the idea of underground military bases. And when you hear that, you sort of think of Area 51 and you think of Dulce Base in New Mexico. But you're talking about something that I had not heard that much about, and I don't think other people have, but you've covered this very well in your new book. So could you just kind of give us a little bit of a clue of how you got onto these underground bases in North Carolina?
Well, it sounds like UFOs got us started, both of us. I have a website that I edit. It's called SkyshipsOverCachers.com, and we deal with cutting-edge subjects, and people began to come to me with these reports. And over a number of years, I first heard about it in 2009, I've been collecting information from mostly people that have military, law enforcement backgrounds, and I've learned about underground bases here in the mountains of North Carolina. And most people don't know about them. They know about the ones out west, but they don't know about these. I looked all over, couldn't find anything written about them, and at that point, I decided to write the book. And the book is titled Underground Military Bases Hidden in North Carolina Mountains.
Now, these people that you said that you had spoken with and interviewed, it sounds like you said a lot of official types, law enforcement, military people, or former military. Were these people able to come out publicly? I mean, are you able to name their names in your book, or is it just?
I have to protect them, but they have proven to those of us here at the website that they are legitimate. One man I had known over several years at the place where I was working at the time, and it was a long time before he revealed that he knew something about this. He actually responded to another witness that we had posted on the website, and he wrote a statement, and he was very careful about how he wrote it because he didn't want his fingerprint on it, so he didn't even write in his normal style of writing. And he even had it delivered through somebody else to make sure that nobody could see him turning over this information. And he's somebody who I believe is still in a high security position.
And I can definitely, that would be understandable if if these bases exist and they're meant to be kept secret. Obviously, people aren't going to be bandying about that they've told. But can you give us an idea of when you started getting information, what kind of tips were you getting? For instance, this gentleman that you said you worked with over time who finally felt comfortable enough to come forward to you, what kind of information was he able to share with you?
Now, some of the information begins to run together in my mind, but from what I remember from his report was he said there was a 6-story deep facility under something we know locally around here as PARI, and it's PARI. It stands for Pisgah Astronomical Research Institute. And it was a Cold War monitoring station, and then after the Cold War, it eventually supposedly was shut down, and the surface level is now an astronomical really an educational place, but it's an odd educational place. You can only get in there by appointment. Certain days you can just drive in and there's no problem. Other days you will see people or men dressed in SWAT-type outfits. It's a very strange place to be near. Whenever I've gotten close to it, it's like, I don't have a real good word for it, but it's almost like electrical vibration that kind of doesn't feel good. And anytime I've gotten close to it, that's what I experience. One of the people that first reported all this at that particular place was the child of somebody involved with top secret projects back in the 50s. And she started to learn about some of these things way back then. And the thing that makes it kind of creepy at the Perry facility, and that's not the only one, but there seems to be experiments going on. There seems to be an interaction with ETs, and not necessarily the good ones. There seems to be experimentation of all sorts. We even had a report from somebody in social services who said that there were satanic reports on children coming out of that area, and when he reported it to the authorities, it was like, I believe he used the word shoved under the rug, and it wasn't dealt with in a proper procedure. Years ago, there was a man who was a young man at the time, and there were reports of caged animals being taken into this place. So that kind of fuels the idea that experimentation is going on.
Oh, geez, that doesn't sound good. Now, when you say the night...
Let me give a balance on this. There's several different facilities. Ironically, I guess ironically isn't the right word, but strangely, they're all close to well-known tourist places in western North Carolina. The most recent one is under the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. There's one under Mount Mitchell, which is the tallest mountain east of the Mississippi. There's one near Devil's Courthouse, which is off the Blue Ridge Parkway. There's one on Sugarloaf Mountain, which is near Chimney Rock, another tourist place.
Mm-hmm.
And another one is in the Linville Gorge. And these are all places that tourists go. And as one of the men told me, he said there is an entrance into Mount Mitchell, and the entrance is so camouflaged it looks like the side of a mountain.
I've heard that about different locations as well. So there must be some way that they're able to do that to really camouflage the location. But when you said they were working and were doing experimentation with, some of the ETs and not the good ones, in your experience, in your research, who are the bad ones? Or are there good ones and bad ones in different species? Or is there certain species that are bad?
Any of the ones that are doing the abductions of people, I don't want to be around them. I think they're violating universal laws of behavior. They typically are greys and reptilians that are doing this type of thing. I would be very careful, and there may be some good ones. I do not know. I think some of them are humanoid type robots that do certain kinds of projects. I don't know if there's a simple answer. The people that do have contact with the Pleiadians and the Arcturians and the ones that are much more compassionate and do not abduct people and communicate telepathically and are very positive, those, nobody should be afraid of those. But I think the other, you need to be very, very cautious.
That's really wild. That the Arcturians just keep coming up again and again this past couple of weeks. When you said that, I thought, oh no, the Arcturians again. There must be something I'm supposed to look at in terms of the Arcturians. But now we're talking about North Carolina here, which of course is Cherokee country, and it's the original land of the Cherokees before so many were pushed out and into Oklahoma, which is my home state. But what do the Indians of the region there, the Cherokees, and I say Indians, and I hope I don't mean any offense by that term, but where I come from, that's what the Native Americans call themselves, as Indians. So I use it, from my locale, but I certainly mean no disrespect by that.
The Indian people do that here too, so don't worry about it.
Good. But what do they have to say about these underground bases? I can't imagine that you didn't get some kind of input.
First of all, hardly anybody knows about this. I mean, when I say this is a brand new book and it's the first time it's out there for the public to know about it, I mean it's really the first time, and I can find nothing about it. So you can't assume just because people live in this area that most people have some inkling of it. Many of them have seen foreign troops operating in the national forest around here and wonder why. And I've heard that from both the Indians and from the white people in this area. Began to hear that when I first moved here in '98, and I started talking to people who were hikers or hunters, or and they would occasionally run into typically Germans, Russians, and what they call the Blue Hats, or the United Nations. And this is actually, I think, a cause that's going to come forward because of this book. Everybody wonders why that's allowed. Why are these foreign troops allowed to have free reign in our national forest? And I found out through the grapevine that there is a treaty. It's called the World Heritage Treaty. It was signed back in 1972 during the Nixon administration. And the purpose for it may have been very, very good, very, very legitimate. And it was to turn over some of our national parks and our historic sites to the United Nations. And I had to go and check that myself to find out that this really did happen, and it's still in effect. And that's why these foreign troops can operate freely, because we have relinquished, as a country, our rights to certain lands within our country. The Mount Mitchell facility, which the military guy who revealed that to me, he says it's 20 stories deep, and that one, he says, is controlled by the United Nations. And one time when they were out there during surveillance of the mountains, they saw tanks being brought from a train station in one of the nearby towns, and they took between 20 and 25 tanks up the road that goes to the top of Mount Mitchell, and the truck never came down in the few roads that go up there. So they were being unloaded underground somehow.
Wow.
So that's why I'm saying the Perry thing is associated with these experiment things. I haven't heard that at the other places. It may be happening, I don't know. But the UN's associated very, very much with the Mount Mitchell.
Wow, that's really interesting. Now, is this the same area that, has a lot of UFO activity? And then we also discussed there seem to be other anomalies around, or at least what we think may be anomalies with Bigfoot creatures in the area.
Okay, we'll start with the UFOs. There's a lot of UFO sightings in this area. Some of them are probably man-made. I'm always slightly suspicious of the ones that are small triangular ones. But we have them in every form. We have them, round globes. We have them in rainbow colors. We have them making strange streaks through the air. And most recently, we've had a very odd phenomena. And these are UFOs that you can see with your eyes at night. We've got pictures of them on our website, and again, that's skyshipsovercachers.com. And under the Skyship Photos section, there's pictures of these UFOs that look like asteroids. It's like they're trying to camouflage. And they're not lit up. I mean, you can see them, but they're not lit up, and they really do look like asteroids. Except
Wow.
they don't move and zip through the sky.
Let's continue this conversation after the break. We're going to take a short one now, and when we come back, we're going to hear more from Mary Joyce and the strange goings-on in North Carolina. Please hang in there with us.
Lorian Fenton here, host of the California MUFON radio show, asking if you'd like special access to exclusive and amazing information about UFOs, the paranormal, and all things unexplained. If you're nodding yes, then join IRN's Insider Club. As an Insider Club member, you'll get an all-access pass to premier Inception Radio Network content for only $4.99 a month. This includes live UFO and paranormal conferences, live streaming UFO skywatches, exclusive IRN radio and TV productions, and of course, paying radio with MJ and Ken Storch. So don't wait any longer. Visit InceptionRadioNetwork.com and click on Member Login to join IRN's Insider Club and get your VIP access today.
Are you a fan of Inception Radio Network? Do you reckon it's the best alternative talk radio station on the planet? Well, if you do, head to facebook.com/Inception Radio Network and like the page. Tell your friends, spread the word, and keep listening to the best. Do you have a smartphone? If so, Inception Radio Network is the best app for you. Available on iTunes, Android, Samsung, and most other app stores. Just search Inception Radio Network. With the app you can listen live, check out podcasts of recent and past shows, view our videos, see what shows are coming up, who the guests are, and, via the chat room, send live questions to those guests. You know it makes sense. Check your app store now. Inception Radio Network. I'll see you there.
Hey, IRN listeners, make sure you tune in to Night Vision Radio with Renee Barnett. Renee will be exposing the truth, one secret at a time. When? Thursdays. Every Thursday, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific. Where? Right here on IRN.
Hello, IRN listeners. This is MJ saying hello and sharing an awesome secret I discovered. It's called DreamNouage.com. Fresh, raw, organic ingredients are used to create all their products. They are made in very small batches to ensure quality and freshness. Handmade in the USA, each product is created with care and with the finest organic ingredients. There are no preservatives, dyes, or chemicals in any product. Stop by Dream Nuage and relax. That's DreamNuage.com. Simple, raw, organic. Hello, Inception Radio Network listeners. Did you miss a show? Well, guess what? You can check us out on YouTube. Go to YouTube and search Inception Radio Network to listen to the latest archives of all the shows on IRN. Another way to listen to us anywhere, anytime. For IRN, this is MJ. And oh yeah, right. Remember to subscribe too. Hit the subscribe button. You're locked into Inception Radio Network, Superior, Wisconsin.
Welcome back to Night Vision Radio. If you're just joining us, we're talking with author, journalist Mary Joyce. We're talking about underground military bases in North Carolina, which is what Mary Joyce's latest book is all about. She's also written other books on other really interesting subjects, a lot of them dealing with that area in North Carolina. And we've been talking about UFO sightings in the area. And now, are people reporting seeing like craft going in and out of these places?
Yeah, there's a lake that's just west of the Perry facility that we were talking about, and it's called Wolf Lake, and people have reported seeing obviously smaller UFOs that go in and out of that lake. And like I said, we get lots of UFO stories.
And
we've see them so often I can't even post them all.
Oh my goodness, it
gets repetitive. You don't want to just keep having the same thing all the time.
Right. I saw a light zipping around. Yeah, that kind of thing.
That gets boring after a while.
But we've heard a lot over the past years, from the conspiracy theorists about these places that they're readying for people to go, members of the elite and other people to go when some apocalyptic event that everyone is expecting to come from the skies or something like that. Do you feel like there's a connection in any way with preparing a place to protect certain people?
I'm sure there's truth to that. I mean, if you do, I'm sure you had a lot of research on the internet. They've done videos where they see trucks with food supplies and things like that going into these underground tunnels. And the tunnels, I think, are pretty extensive. One of the former Air Force men that I interviewed said that he was pretty confident that there is like a tunnel system that goes all the way from, just outside D.C., all through the Appalachian chain, all the way down to Atlanta. I feel that from everything I've heard that that's probably true. We've had residents talk about experiencing grinding sounds underneath the ground and vibrations, pounding sounds. and they'll only last for maybe a couple of days or sometimes longer, and then it quits. And you're probably real familiar with these huge underground boring machines.
Yes.
And depending on the density of the ground, they can do 7 miles in a day. So these people, a lot of them are along the Balsam Ridge, and they've experienced that for a time, and then it stops. The most recently constructed underground facility seems to be the one beneath the Smoky Mountain National Park. And so we've had reports, again, from 2 great military witnesses, and they've heard like major pounding, like the kind of pounding when you're putting pylons in for a bridge, that kind of sound, and they can feel it. Roads, one particular road that's close to what we perceive to be the entrance, they had it closed down for 2 years, and with some bogus reason. They've also stopped private flights over the park, or at least certain parts of the park, and they say it's because they don't want the elk disturbed, because they have brought back the elk and want the animal to thrive again here. Well, that's really stupid, because right outside one of the major visitor centers on the busiest road through the park, they have elk that you can see right from the road. So obviously the sound of traffic and planes and all that is not scaring the elk. So it's just a bogus excuse.
As ever. That's really wild. And then now, is this also, I'm trying to picture the scope of this area that we're talking about. Is this the same area where the tunnels were found, where it's believed that that's the home of the Bigfoot creatures?
The tunnels are small tunnels, and they are associated with the Cherokee Little People. The little tunnels are not associated with the Bigfoot.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And yes, it's all in the same area. We have Bigfoot, we have, I was going to say Little Feet, but we have the Cherokee Little People, we have the UFOs, we have the underground facilities, and that seems to be a whole lot of interesting mystery.
It is interesting.
And UFOs.
Yep. We mentioned in our talk that we had on the phone yesterday that, we have all the same kinds of phenomena occurring around Tahlequah, Oklahoma, which is, the capital of the Cherokee Nation and there. And except for the underground military bases. However, there are lots of tunnels around those areas in those mountains around there, the Cookson Hills, and then over into the Ozarks.
What kind of tunnels?
Well, they seem to look like natural tunnels that have been worked inside. And the...
big or small?
Pretty big. Okay. Enough for people to walk through. That's
more likely to be the Bigfoot then.
Well, I'm not sure. I didn't hear anything associated with Bigfoot to do with the tunnels at the time, but what I did hear, and we interviewed someone, I worked on conspiracy theory with Jesse Ventura, and we covered this area, and we had someone from the Katuah Band of Cherokee Indians, and actually she was the tribal historian at the time, and she said that it was well known among the people that you could enter the tunnels there and walk all the way to Denver, Colorado. Wow. Through this tunnel network. Now what's really kind of weird is that they've now blocked off all those tunnel entrances, and you can't get in those caves and tunnels anymore. And people, fear that they're blocking them off for a reason so that there will be no escape should something happen. That would be, of course, where the people would go, would be in the tunnels and underground for refuge. Mm-hmm. But interesting, have the same elements, the Bigfoot, the UFOs, the strange phenomena, and it all is around this, Cherokee Nation, and then of course you're in Cherokee country there. I just wonder if that's just.
Well, let me back up a little bit on this. The Cherokee came to this area from the Great Lakes region, so they did not originate here.
Oh, I see.
When they arrived, they found these little well-tended gardens, and they didn't see any people. Eventually, they saw these little people come out from underneath the ground, and they would work the gardens at night. And the Cherokee originally called them the Moon People.
Mm.
So the little people were here a long time ago. And there is a rock in this area, and it's called the Juvenile rock. It's probably 20 by 15 feet, has glyphs all over it that nobody has been able to decipher. It makes no sense to the Cherokee, and nobody's been able to figure it out. The little people may very well have done those since they were here first.
Hmm. Well, that's interesting. We've heard about the little people, but haven't heard much because, as I think you and I talked about, a lot of people are reluctant to speak about the little people, but you do hear different things from different people. And, I've heard that, you don't want to speak about the little people because you will draw their attention towards you and that they can be very mischievous. And I think you told me that you'd heard that someone say that, if you talk about the little people, you'll die. But of course, you've been talking about the little people.
He's been talking since he was 7 years old about the little people, and he didn't die until he was past 85. So,
Right.
His life in itself kind of blows a hole in that theory. I hear things like that less and less, and it originates with the Cherokee people. But now I hear more of the Cherokee people telling me that the little people still exist, and they try to protect them. And the worst thing you ever hear that's mischievous is that some of the Cherokee to this day, will put food out for the little people. And if they forget to do it, the roof might be pelted with little pebbles, like, hey, where's my food? But, I'm not hearing the fearful stories as much as I would have heard, 10 or 15 years ago.
Now, were you telling me something about people had kind of stirred up? Was it the little people or was it Bigfoot, where they had to move out of the area because?
Okay, that's Bigfoot. But let me just mention, if somebody's really interested in the little people, the book I've written about that is called Cherokee Little People Were Real. I've interviewed 11 old-timers. Most of them, 9 of them, worked on the early construction at Western Carolina University, which again is in this area. And when they cut into land that was supposedly virgin soil, they would find these little tunnels. And these tunnels are not like natural caves that have been extended. All of them have been cut in this real dense red clay. They tend to be about 2 feet across and 3.5 feet tall. They're square cut except on the top, and then they're rounded. And if you know anything about engineering, that helps make the tunnel stronger. Those were found all over that campus as various things were being constructed. They also found little skeletons. The best one was a child-sized skull, which one of the science teachers had on his desk, kind of like a decorative paperweight. And another teacher came along one day and picked it up and looked at it carefully and said, "This is not a child's skull. It has all its wisdom teeth." So there's a whole lot of stories, and in that book, and any book that I do, there's lots of photos, lots of maps. It's kind of a magazine-style way of presenting information. We live in a very visual world, and I think the visual plays a big role in books. And you get people are interested in these kinds of things, but they don't generally have the time or the inclination to read these real thick academic research books. And so I try to be the bridge between the academics and all the rest of us, and I try to write in a very condensed, easy-to-read style so that more people can know this information.
That's really great. Now, when you are talking or we're talking to these elders about the little people and about these little skeletons and et cetera, all the people that you interviewed about these, what was the general size range that we're talking about?
The little people?
Of the little people.
They seem to be about, the most common report is about 3.5 feet tall.
And that's an adult.
Yes. Uh-huh.
At 3.5 feet tall. That's really interesting. Now, were they reported to be white-skinned, or do you know?
Okay, well, let's just, since we're making everything confusing tonight, I get 3 different reports. The most common one is that they look a lot like the Cherokee, just a smaller version. That's the most common. That seems to be what may still exist in this area in the more remote areas. There's 2 other descriptions that are quite different. One is more like a Irish leprechaun that have red whiskers, and the Cherokee did not like the ones with the red whiskers and would try to kill them. There may be truth to that because some moonshiners were way up on Cullowhee Mountain Road, way off the road, building a still, a moonshine still, and they came upon this big pile of little people bones, which they covered up and didn't tell anybody about until after Prohibition because they didn't want anybody to know about their still. Another thing that confirms that kind of imagery is one of the old-timers has it's like a little medallion, and it has a leprechaun-type face on each side. He found it when he was 5 years old after a major, major flood, the kind that makes the history books around here. And so much of the soil had been washed away, and that's when he found this. And in the book, I have a picture of that medallion, and right next to it, I have a drawing of a leprechaun. And they look the same. They've got the pointed ears and the turned-up nose and the little whiskers, and you go, wow. The third description is totally different, and that is in the earliest reports. Supposedly, when they first came here and saw the little gardens, when they first saw the people that came out of the ground, they said they were blue-skinned with big eyes. So here we are talking about little people with 3 totally different descriptions.
Yeah. Do you think that some of them are just wrong, or do you think that there might have been different looking ones?
Well, when you start doing research about little people around the world, you find out that they have been all over the world, and they don't all look the same. So,
that's absolutely true, yeah.
So what can I say? Well, you just may have them all here or had them all here. I don't think the blue ones and the ones with the red whiskers still exist here.
Yeah, that's... I'd never heard that before, but I was reading something recently about, you mentioned the moon people. There's something called the moon-eyed people. I don't know if that's the same thing.
It might be the same thing. It would make sense.
They were talking about they were kind of spindly and white skin, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, they sound like ETs.
These are the blue skin with the big eyes, and of course, if anybody's living underground, over time the eyes would be bigger. Now, one of the people that I interviewed for that book was, when I first interviewed her, I only knew her by the name of Ruth Beck. The original interview with her was back in 2000, 2001. When I put this book together, Cherokee Little People Were Real, just a year ago, I went back to find pictures and things to go with the original transcripts. I was looking for hers and found her obituary, and it wasn't until then that I realized she was the great-great-granddaughter of Solly, who is an eastern band of Cherokee. It's one of their heroes. Mm-hmm. And she said that she felt the little people came from the stars, which is not surprising because the Cherokee believe they originated from the Pleiades.
Right. Yeah, and what if they feel, the people in your area about the Bigfoot creatures? Did they, in my area where I grew up and where I did a documentary about Bigfoot, basically most of the older people, the Indians, just said, they're another tribe. We don't bother them, and they don't bother us, and they don't like people bothering the Bigfoot creatures either. The Indians are
Every person that I've interviewed who's seen a Bigfoot wants to protect the Bigfoot. They don't want me to tell people exactly where the Bigfoot are.
Yeah.
So, all of them sense that they're certainly more than just, another four-footed creature of some, crawling in the woods.
Yeah.
They sense a humanness about them.
Oh, absolutely. I found that too, and it really struck me.
Everything I've read, it seems like the Bigfoot on the West Coast are more sophisticated, more educated, more than what you get on the East Coast.
Now, you were saying something about that the other day, and you were talking about someone who actually was communicating with them, writing notes back and forth, that sort of thing. Can you expand on that a little bit? Because
Sure.
that was wild.
Her name is Joan Ocean. She is known worldwide for her expertise with the dolphins, and she lives in Hawaii. But I don't remember the details anymore, but when she was on the west coast of the continental United States, she interacted with the Bigfoot, and I think they sensed her energy, which is a really nice, wonderful, gentle energy, and she, interacted with two specific ones, and one was a female that seemed to be like the healer maybe for the Bigfoot, but they would write. I mean, it was primitive, but they would write notes and stuff to her. I can't tell you exactly how far back it is in the archives, but we have a section on the Skyships Over Cashiers website that's devoted to Bigfoot and other kinds of creatures, and her story is in the archives of that section going back a year or so ago, and it's a really, really good story. And if you decide you want to do another documentary on Bigfoot, she would be an excellent person to contact, simply because she's so credible and has done such wonderful work with the dolphins.
Wow. Does she work with the gentleman called Kiwani Lapsaritis?
No. I mean, if she does, I'm unaware of it.
It seemed like that I was seeing some kind of connection between the two of them on the internet, and I had him on the show, several years ago, and he was talking about a family. He wouldn't give me the location where they were, who was having a lot of interaction with Bigfoot creatures, and there was like little notes and little gifts and things that reminded me very much of what you were saying. Now, you said, do you remember at all what kind of notes that she got? I mean, what kind of messages were they?
I don't think I can quote those right now, but I mean, they're still on the internet, and I can certainly, if you're very, very interested, I can get into my archives and let you know at a later time so that you can read it, because you just might want to do something with it later on.
Sure, absolutely, and I'll post them as well for other people to read. I'd love to see them. But did she also feel that because I know you said she worked with dolphins, of course, that's what she's known for, and I would imagine there was some communication going on between her and the dolphins. Correct. Do you think that sort of helped her communicate with the Bigfoot?
Oh, absolutely.
And do you think there was some kind of telepathic thing going on as well?
Yeah, because they knew they used some words about referring to her like somebody from across the water, and like they couldn't meet with her because she was across the water. I believe they called her the Water Lady, and they seemed to know that she was coming. Even when she didn't know.
Wow. That's interesting. And so they would speak in their notes, and telepathically she would hear it in English?
No, I mean,
or they would just...
They would write in English.
Wow.
Printed. It was printed. Very simple, but it was printed. And they would leave gifts for her. I mean, it's quite phenomenal. And also what we've got going on right now is an ongoing investigation it's again in this area, and we were fortunate enough to get a very large locket of hair, and without uncurling it, it's about 6 or 7 inches in size, and that has been sent off for DNA testing.
Wow.
And if things go the way they're supposed to before July is over, we may get the results back on that.
Now, when this clump of hair was found, that was associated with Bigfoot sightings, right?
That's correct.
And so it's, they're pretty sure that it came from this creature, and now it doesn't seem to match up with other species, so they're testing it now?
It's being tested, and the reason somebody who will come forward at another time is paying to have it tested just based on what we showed on the website, because the picture of the hair looks so authentic, and so we'll just have to.
Wow, is that
see what's going to happen?
Is that an expensive thing to do?
I'm told it's about $2,000.
Oh, and just an interested party wanted to help you guys facilitate that.
Correct.
And paid for it. Oh, that's great. That's really nice.
I don't think my budget would allow it.
Yeah, there's so many things like that come up, and that it's nice when someone steps forward and helps get those things accomplished, because we're all sitting here waiting with bated breath, to find out what it says. Have you received any preliminary results at all, or?
No, I'm just waiting.
And how long do you think it's going to take?
I'm told that maybe by the end of this month we might have some results.
Oh, wow.
We just don't know until we get it.
Yeah, keep us posted. That would be really great. I'd love to.
And if people are interested in that, they can periodically check in on the Skyships Over Cashers website, because we certainly will, post developments. And there's an ongoing. I mean, the most recent complete report is there, including first scribbles and then writing on the walls at this one house that's in this remote valley where the Bigfoot are. And you can see the evolution of attempts at drawing and writing, even though they did it on the house walls.
Oh, that's amazing. Well,
and the way it happened was quite interesting, because there's a pond on this. It's a bowl-shaped valley surrounded by forest ridges. Mm-hmm. The people have had the property for, I think, like 17 years. The woman who allowed us to go onto the property said that she has often sensed that something was kind of watching her from the forest, but nothing. She never saw anything. She never felt in danger in any way. And when they went to repair the pond, or the dam for the pond, they used a jackhammer. And when they were drilling into the ground, they came upon something hollow. And from that point on, they began to have trouble with the Bigfoot. She surmises that they cut into a cave where they were living, because she says there are caves in the ridges around their valley, and she thinks those are the homes for them. So once that happened, they started, it evolved. They started, messing with their cars, and then they started getting their handprints and stuff all over the doors, and then they finally broke in. And at this point, the people have been out of that house for 2 years. They go back almost every day and often see something quite new. The first time, or was it the second time? I've been there twice. And one of those times when we walked up to the front door, there was a rag that had been kind of shaped into a basket. There were 3 old coins and something that was kind of goldish brown in it, almost like a basket or a bird's nest, mm-hmm. right in front of the door. You couldn't miss it. And she said it hadn't been there the day before. And I kind of had the feeling maybe it was a peace offering, because Bigfoot are known for leaving gifts for people. They will leave pretty stones or flowers, or in certain situations they will bring people fish that have just been caught. It's quite intriguing.
It really is. There are some amazing stories, and I mean, I've talked to many people myself about the Bigfoot, and talk to people from all different walks of life. Bankers, teachers, doctors, nurses, truck drivers, and they just tell it with such conviction that I was talking to a nurse in I believe it was in Ada, Oklahoma, and she stepped out of the hospital to give us an interview and talked about how she, as a child, she said, "Oh yes, we played with the little ones in the forest. They lived, in a cabin in the forest, and that the little ones would come around and play with the kids." And it was just very matter of fact, and nothing shocking about it to them at all.
Well, a lot of the drawings on this house, are done in the bedrooms where the children used to live. And I had the feeling, and perhaps some evidence, that it was the juvenile Bigfoot that were doing these things. Number one, a lot of the drawings were done below the light switches. And I would think a full-grown Bigfoot would not get down and draw at that level. And then that's where you see the evolution going from scribbles to attempts at drawing something, and then attempts that look like trying to impersonate, writing or printing. And it looks like an educational process.
It's
so they're
just
not dumb.
No, apparently not. It's just amazing. It really is, because I do think that they are not animals any more than we are. I mean, just from what I hear from people that have had these very close encounters, that they said, I said, were you looking at an animal or were you looking at a person?
In the book that I did, Cherokee Little People Were Real, I do have something in there about one of the Bigfoot stories. And the reason it's in there is because the story took place very close to that Judicola rock that I mentioned that has all the hieroglyphs on it.
Yes.
And Judicola, and that's the English version, I don't know how to say it in Cherokee, but Judicola was a legendary giant. Well, this story that I have in that book is about the Bigfoot family not that far from that rock. So maybe when they were talking about the Judicola giant, maybe it really was a Bigfoot.
Hey, that makes a lot of sense. It sure could be. Sure could be.
But that book's a good guidebook for people who want to have a different kind of vacation and explore North Carolina. And, with the maps and the photos, it'll at least be a starting place to perhaps get lucky and see some of these mysteries. And also on the website, it tells you where you can, where a lot of the UFO sightings have been. We've actually had one UFO that somebody saw, a small one, land in a field. So.
Wow. And your site is Skyships Over the Cachers, and Cachers looks like
it's skyshipsovercachers.com.
Skyships Over Cachers, and it's Cachers is spelled like cashiers.
It is, but they pronounce it Cachers.
That's right.
It's a high mountain community that doubles in size during the summer when all the flatlanders from the hot country come up here to cool off.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Lots of waterfalls, and it's a very pretty area.
Well, there's so much going on over there. That'd be a great place to go and just explore and check out these different sites. Now, is there any evidence that one could see about these underground bases? That, if you came there, if I came to North Carolina, would I see anything? Well,
you can go to Perry. I mean, find
Sure.
out when they're open. You can go there. You're not going to see the facility because they hide that beneath it. What's on top, I call it a capstone cover, like on a pyramid.
Sure.
And most of the stuff is beneath it. You can certainly go to the top of Mount Mitchell, but that doesn't mean you're going to find that hidden entrance to get in there.
Yeah.
And in that book, and I'll mention the title again, it's called Underground Military Bases Hidden in North Carolina Mountains. And again, it's my MO. There's lots of photos, there's lots of location maps, and so people can really have a starting point if they want to start to find some of these things.
Are you going to give any events out that way?
I do lectures. I haven't done any events.
That would be great. Do you have anything coming up if people happen to be in your area? Any talks scheduled?
On Saturday, July 11th, which is a week from Saturday, I'll be speaking at the Henderson County Heritage Museum, which is right on Main Street in Hendersonville. And I'd spoken there about the Cherokee Little People and got a really good turnout. And since Hendersonville is so close to many of these things, I think there might be quite a bit of interest in it. So if anybody's around, it'll be 2 o'clock on July 11th.
2 o'clock on July 11th. Now, is that information on your website?
Yeah, if you look under Editor's Corner, that's the only place where I allow myself to put myself in the foreground. And I will list upcoming radio shows and lectures. And I also have podcasts and videos and my books. All of the stuff that's just me is in that one little section. I try to stay out of the picture in the rest of the website.
Oh, I see. Okay, great. Well, we want to keep track of you. If you may be having some things coming up, so we'll check back on your website for that, and also on this evidence that you're going to be bringing forward about the testing on the Bigfoot hair. That's going to be amazing. But we're going to take another quick break right now, and then we're going to head into the last half hour, and we're going to get into Jesus and evidence of Jesus that he left behind for us to find. So I'm really interested in this subject, as I know the listeners are, and we'll be back in just a few moments with Mary Joyce. Hang in there.
Hello, everyone. Lorian Fenton here, host of the California MUFON radio show, asking if you'd like special access to exclusive and amazing information about UFOs, the paranormal, and all things unexplained. If you're nodding yes, then join IRN's Insider Club. As an Insider Club member, you'll get an all-access pass to premier Inception Radio Network content for only $4.99 a month. This includes live UFO and paranormal conferences, live streaming UFO skywatches, exclusive IRN radio and TV productions, and of course, paying radio with MJ and Ken Storch. So don't wait any longer. Visit InceptionRadioNetwork.com and click on Member Login to join IRN's Insider Club and get your VIP access today.
Are you a fan of Inception Radio Network? Do you reckon it's the best alternative talk radio station on the planet? Well, if you do, head to facebook.com/Inception Radio Network and like the page. Tell your friends, spread the word, and keep listening to the best. Do you have a smartphone? If so, Inception Radio Network is the best app for you. Available on iTunes, Android, Samsung, and most other app stores. Just search Inception Radio Network. With the app you can listen live, check out podcasts of recent and past shows, view our videos, see what shows are coming up, who the guests are, and, via the chat room, send live questions to those guests. You know it makes sense. Check your app store now. Inception Radio Network. I'll see you there.
Hey, IRN listeners, make sure you tune in to Night Vision Radio with René Barnett. René will be exposing the truth one secret at a time. When? Thursdays. Every Thursday, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific. Where? Right here on IRN.
Hello, IRN listeners. This is MJ saying hello and sharing an awesome secret I discovered. It's called DreamNuage.com. Fresh, raw, organic ingredients are used to create all their products. They are made in very small batches to ensure quality and freshness. Handmade in the USA, each product is created with care and with the finest organic ingredients. There are no preservatives, dyes, or chemicals in any product. Stop by Dream Nuage and relax. That's DreamNuage.com. Simple, raw, organic. Hello, Inception Radio Network listeners. Did you miss a show? Well, guess what? You can check us out on YouTube. Go to YouTube and search Inception Radio Network to listen to the latest archives of all the shows on IRN. Another way to listen to us anywhere, anytime. For IRN, this is MJ. And oh yeah, right. Remember to subscribe too. Hit the subscribe button. You're locked into Inception Radio Network, Superior, Wisconsin.
You're listening to Night Vision Radio. I'm your host, Renee Barnett. We're talking tonight with author, researcher, and journalist Mary Joyce. And she's been talking about all kinds of anomalous goings-on in North Carolina, including underground secret military bases. We've been talking about Bigfoot creatures. We've been talking about the Cherokee little people. And now I'd like to get into, during this last half hour, into another book in a field of research that Mary got into on Jesus and the evidence that was left behind. So what have you found, and where did you find it, Mary?
I consider myself a bridge between the researchers and the archaeologists and all of the rest of us. And these researchers come upon incredible information, but they bury it in these big, thick books with lots and lots of words. And most people will not take the time to read it, even though they might find the topic interesting. And what I do is I wade through this stuff and boil it down to its essence, try to put it in just an easy-to-read form, and then find the photos and the maps and the stuff to go with it to amplify the words, so that anybody can, find out fascinating information. The information about Jesus is quite incredible, really, and it goes far beyond what's in the Bible.
Now, I know you talked about, the travels of Jesus, and some of us have heard about, the travels to India. That I had a friend, Paul Davids, who did a documentary called Jesus in India that was quite popular, where they followed the trail of Jesus to Kashmir in India. And but you're talking about other places that Jesus was thought to have traveled, including the United States, which is really interesting.
Hey, you've launched me on a whole bunch of different directions. Let me see.
Well, you just pick one. You're
right,
the expert.
I'm going to pick Joseph of Arimathea. And
Love it. Okay.
he is the only mentioned as the rich man who claimed the body of Jesus after the crucifixion and provided a tomb for him. That's basically all we know about him. But when I've done the research with the old Eastern Christianity, I began to find out that he was the great uncle of Jesus. When Joseph the carpenter died, Mary's uncle took over the responsibility of the family when Jesus was still young. So that's one connection. Another connection, when somebody is crucified, I'm just jumping around on this theme. When somebody was crucified at that time, they would be thrown into a pit. But if a next of kin came and claimed the body, then they could take the body. Well, only a next of kin could claim the body. So Joseph of Arimathea was able to do that. There's a whole lot more about him, but he was a very well-known man at that time. Joseph of Arimathea had a title called the Nobilis Decurio. He was in charge of the 10 mines in southwestern England, and that was a very prestigious position. He was a very rich man. He was in charge of the ships that would go from eastern Mediterranean to England and haul these back and forth. Well, he took Jesus with him on at least one trip, if not more, and there are crosses in that region of England that are very ancient that show Jesus as a boy in a tunic on a cross, and they're called tunic crosses. There is a well that was called the Jesus Well, and it was right by the Camel River where Joseph of Arimathea was known to stop and to get water for the ship. And later they built a little tiny stone-covered chapel over it to protect the well. It's still there. Ironically, it is where a golf course is now. So the golf course goes on, and there is this square-cut hole in the golf course, so you can still see the chapel. And
wow,
I know, it's fascinating. And because Joseph of Arimathea was such a traveler, it is suspected that he may have played a role in helping Jesus make his journeys to the Far East, because there were well-known trade routes at that time. And by sea and by land. And the story about him being in India is much more controversial than about him being in the Himalayas. And I have information in there about some well-known people who have gone up to the old Himas Monastery in Tibet, which is way, way up there. It's like it was a major voyage to go up there. Voyage is the wrong word. And one of the people that went was Elizabeth I'm probably going to say her name wrong. Elizabeth Caspary. And she was the person who started the Montessori schools in the United States. And she went with a group of world faith tourists up to this monastery. And while she was up there, they eventually met the head librarian, the chief librarian, and he came down one day with 3 parchment books that he presented to them and said, here is evidence, or here is proof your Jesus was here. And then William Douglas, who was a Supreme Court judge for at least 30 years, maybe longer, and he made a trip up there and had a similar experience. It seems that he learned quite a bit there, that he may very well have gone there to study, the ancient religions.
Did you, in your research into the crucifixion, did you find anything? I know that normally when a person was crucified, for one thing, their legs were broken, and that they would have been left up on the cross for several days. But Jesus was taken down after about 6 hours. and he was his legs were not broken. Did you find anything on that? And if so,
not anything that would clarify it any better than what you just said.
I see.
I've instead of following speculation, I have followed things that have some concreteness to them.
Sure. I just wondered if you were able to corroborate that in any way, other than just hearing that as well.
Not exactly the way you're asking it, but there's a man named, he's no longer living, his name is Ron Wyatt, and he was doing archaeology where he thought the crucifixion probably occurred, and over all these years, the time of Jesus is like 20 feet below the surface of what we have today. And many of the people who have homes in Israel, if they can go down into their basement and cut down and get to the old city. So the time of Jesus is hidden well beneath the ground. And he did a major dig and found something that appeared to be a chapel that was built around the crucifixion site. And he found the foundation that was about, I think it was 22 by 40 feet, rectangular. And up at the front, there's like a little thing that juts out from the cliff wall that looks like a little altar. There are 3 post holes in a row and one behind it elevated slightly. And these post holes were permanently cut into the rock, and they were about like a foot square, and they would put a stone cap on them so that dirt and stuff wouldn't fall into them. And so these are good-sized post holes, square cut. There's also a round circular rolling stone that would have been used to cover a tomb, and it's 13 feet by 2 feet thick. That's within this church frame, and it seems to be an early church built around the crucifixion site.
Wow.
So that's what I mean. I try to go for the concrete rather than spending time on speculation that we can't easily prove.
Sure. Now, there are, documents and texts and artifacts and things that seem to be just popping up out of the ground all the time to substantiate some of these things. Now, do you feel that same way about any information regarding a possible marriage for Jesus?
Oh, I'm absolutely convinced he was married for several different reasons. Real briefly, in order to be a rabbi during his time, you had to be married. In order for a man to teach children, you had to be married. And he was definitely called rabbi. That's a real simple answer to it.
Yes.
Some of the more fantastic archaeological information was presented by James Tabor, who is the head of religion at, are you familiar with him?
Yes, I am.
At the University of North Carolina.
And I think he's on the Jesus seminar as well, that group that studies Jesus, yeah.
But let me see if I can create a picture here. At the time of Jesus, they would create tombs in the side of hills. And so there would be an entrance, and you would go in, and then there would be a square-shaped, like, entrance area. And on the other 3 walls, there would be niches, and that's where they would bury people. But they would just bury their bones in what they call ossuaries, or bone boxes. Mm-hmm. And they actually had a 2-step burial system. They would leave them out to dry, so to speak, in the center of the tomb for a year. And after all the soft tissue had disappeared, they'd go in and collect the bones and put them in an ossuary. Then these ossuaries, or stone boxes, would be put into the niches in the wall. Well, the one that they call the Jesus family tomb, in the place of honor, which is the first niche to the right as you walk into the tomb, there are 3 ossuaries. One says, Jesus, son of Joseph. Mm-hmm. One, and I'm obviously going to do it in English, one has the very familiar or nickname or loving name of Mary, along with the feminine title of Lord or Master, and that is Mara. Mar would be like a lord for a man. Mara is for a woman. Mm. And the third one says Judah, son of Jesus. That alone is very, very thought-provoking. Mm-hmm.
Now, this is the Talpiot tomb, I'm assuming we're talking about.
It must be.
With the Jesus ossuary,
that's what they wrote about. They wrote about that early on with none of what I'm saying right now. And then they found this other information later. And it's quite fascinating, and I put that information in a form that's much more comprehensible than what I'm spitting out to you right now. I can write better than I talk.
Well, you're doing a wonderful job, and I really appreciate you sharing all this information with us. It's of great interest to me, and I know it is all our listeners. So now, you said you've convinced yourself that for a number of reasons. Of course, it would have been extremely unusual for a man, especially a rabbi, to be unmarried.
Right.
We know that, and we know
another evidence of that is with let's see, she's a professor at Harvard Divinity School, Karen King, and she has authenticated a piece of parchment with ancient writing on it, and it's been authenticated in several ways, and it quotes Jesus as it's just a partial piece, but he says he refers to his wife.
Yes, I've seen that. That's amazing, and I love that she actually announced that across the street from the Vatican. It was actually a Vatican building, I think, that she was in when she made the announcement. She announced it in Rome. I think that was about 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was 2012, I think.
And I just happened to be in René-le-Château, France, when that announcement came out.
Wow. Very good.
I was in the restaurant up there in the village, the Jardin des Marie, named after Mary Magdalene. And when I heard about it, somebody had texted me about it, and I announced it there in the restaurant, and the owners immediately popped out the champagne, and they served everyone champagne, and they were celebrating. It was really wonderful.
Wow,
and they brought
out
out this
right place at the right time on that.
It was amazing. I couldn't believe it. And they brought back out this big, huge leather-bound book where they kept recorded, certain events and things that happened there. And they had me write in the book, what had occurred on that date and how we were all celebrating. So it's really great. Wow. I'm going to go back in September. I can't wait to get back because I have not been back since then.
There's a book that is still in that area. It's the oldest, they believe it's the oldest gospel or book from Christian times, and it's called The Beloved Companion. And it was written by Mary Magdalene when they had to flee Israel when the Romans began to go at war with the Jews in 66 A.D. They fled to the south of France, and she wrote this while she was there. Now, later on, from what I can piece together, she was brought back to the original tomb, family tomb, at a much later time. But she definitely was there. And this book, the original, was preserved by the Cathars, who were very much persecuted by the Catholic Church. And a splinter group or remnant of the Cathars has saved this document, and it was just translated for the rest of the world to read about it, I think in 2010. And it's very well worth reading if you haven't read it, especially if you're going back to that part of the world.
Oh, I haven't read it. Is this the Beloved Companion you're talking about?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I'd love to read it. Absolutely.
I think it's the Gospel of the Beloved Companion.
Oh, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene.
No, that's different.
No? That's different.
It definitely says Beloved Companion.
So this is not part of the Gnostic, so-called Gnostic Gospels or the Nag Hammadi library.
There's another one that's attributed to her, and this is not the same thing.
Wow. Oh, I definitely gotta track that down. That sounds really good. Yeah, I plan to go back in September, and I'm part of the Henry Lincoln Archive Project, where, I don't know if you're familiar with Mr. Henry Lincoln, but he's pretty much responsible for the hundreds of thousands of people that have trekked down to René-le-Château, and also for the Da Vinci Code and a lot of books that followed the book that he co-authored in 1982 called Holy Blood, Holy Grail. But
Right.
we are preserving all his archives. Henry's 85 now. He's amazing. And so I'm going to go over and do a little work on the archives, going to take some people on a little private tour while I'm there, and then get back over here to Southern California. But I can't wait to get over there. And I might mention, too, I do have room for one more person if anybody wants to go. I'm keeping this group small because I want to kind of keep it friendly, intimate, and we can also be free to sort of, on a consensus, say, hey, let's go here today, let's go there today. So we aren't going to be super rigid and have to stick to an itinerary. We kind of want to let things happen as they seem to do over there in southern France, southwest France. But where, of course, I must say the presence of Jesus and Mary Magdalene is everywhere. You know, the people in that area just take it for granted that, you know, they were there, they lived there, they had children that played in the meadow. And
Joseph of Arimathea was on the boat along with Mary Magdalene and a number of other people. And when that war broke out with the Romans, they were set sail in a ship without oars, thinking that that would get rid of them, that they would die at sea, but they wouldn't have to kill them and cause more controversy. They survived that and ended up landing in the south of France.
yeah, and people, you know, say all the time, how could they have gotten to France? Well, it was easy.
Mm-hmm.
People were doing it all the time. It wasn't a huge trip across the Mediterranean. And this was a very, you know, I guess the story goes that they landed at, you know, Saint Marie de la Mer, and where they have every year a Mary Magdalene festival on Magdalene Feast Day. And they claim that they have the skull of Mary Magdalene there, and they bring it out, and it's in this gilded golden encasement in the reliquary, I guess, and they parade it around through the town. Now, I don't know if that is the real skull of Mary Magdalene, because I know the relic business can be very
very lucrative.
Yeah, there's lots of true crosses, and there's lots of body parts and lots of foreskins of Jesus, according to Tim Wallace Murphy, who I had on the show a few weeks ago.
just what everybody wants. Oh.
Exactly. But anyhow, so I guess you have to be a little bit skeptical about I'm very discerning about the relic business. But anyhow, this when you went into this research into Jesus, what prompted that? Because it's kind of a departure from some of your other.
None of my books have anything in common other than the format, which is condensed writing, easy to read, with lots of visuals to go with them. That's the only thing that's common about them. The Jesus thing was quite different. I was awakened in the early morning hours of October 5th, 2013, with an image of Jesus, and told to write this book. And he wanted it done in a month's time, and he wanted it to be so that people who are so busy and don't have time to read would have time to read this, because he wanted to reach as many people as possible. So just the way that book came about is certainly a departure from the other two.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, once again, let's give out your website. It's skyships.com, and that's spelled, well, it's Cashers, which is, I guess, the correct local pronunciation, but it spells Cashiers. So we want everybody to know and be able to get onto your site, see what's coming up. Are you going to be posting those Bigfoot results, the hair results, on that same site?
Anything that we do will be, that website will be the place where you can learn about it. And I will give the information on the books, but you can always go to the editor's corner on that website, and the information about the books is at the end of that section. But the three titles are Tangible Evidence of Jesus, that's the short title. Long title is Tangible Evidence of Jesus Left Behind for Us to Find. The other book is Cherokee Little People Were Real, and the most recent one that just came out is Underground Military Bases Hidden in North Carolina Mountains. All three books are available on Amazon. Some people like to support the independent bookstores. If you're one of those people, you can simply type in citylightsnc.com. The NC stands for North Carolina. citylightsnc.com, and you can type in the books in their search area and order through them. So those are the ways you can get the books.
Great. That's wonderful. Before we close out, we just got 2 minutes left at the most. I wanted to be sure and thank Mark Eddy for his help in connecting this show together tonight, for connecting me with you, Mary, and I appreciate that. You're a wonderful guest, and you've got great information, and I love all your areas of study. Even though as you said, some of them are not connected, but some of them really kind of are. A lot of them are connected to certainly that geographical area where you are, which is really interesting. I haven't spent much time in that area, and I think, it would be a good place to go. Nice little trip, nice little summer vacation trip.
Especially somebody who's living out in drought-land.
Absolutely. Anywhere is better than here right now. What's really weird is that we're having a lot of humidity, which we're not used to here. I was used to it in Oklahoma, one of the reasons that I wanted to leave. But, this is supposed to be drought. It's supposed to be dry heat, not sticky, clammy, sweaty heat. But anyway, I want to thank everybody for listening. And I hear the music is rolling. And next week, join us. We're going to have Stanton Friedman. We're going to be talking about UFOs and more. Join us. Thanks, Mary Joyce.
Thank you, too. Take care.
Good night, everybody.